I'm Amanda Siliker for Canadian HR Reporter TV. Liz Scott is a principal at Organizational Solutions, a disability management firm. She spoke with our Shannon Klie about psychological disability claims.
What is the biggest concern employers have around managing psychological disability claims?
I think from an employer's perspective, there's a couple of concerns. Number one, I think, is differentiating between workplace issues and real legitimate psychological claims. And that's a difficult minefield for employers to sort of tread through.
What kind of claims are you seeing?
It depends. It depends on the employer. You can have people that are really legitimately experiencing some psychological issues, like post-traumatic stress disorder or depression or social anxiety disorder. And then you can also see people that are really trying to determine a way to dispense of work so that they have time to focus on other things in their lives. And certainly life is stressful, but stress in and of itself is not a disability.
What are some tips and techniques to help employers wade through that?
I think there's a couple of things. Number one, when a psychological claim does emerge, to ensure that they have say a third-party administrator to look at the confidential medical information, making sure that an individual does have legitimate medical to support the need for, maybe even not time off, but a transitional return to work plan. I think that's the other issue that employers really need assistance with, is establishing that transitional return to work plan for someone coming back from a psychological claim. So to capture the capabilities for physical claims, it's easy. You've broken your leg, there's a bone broken, the bone heals, everything's easy. But when it's a psychological claim, someone's had depression, oh, what a mystery, right? So it's a matter of figuring out how do we then reintegrate that individual into the workplace.
There's still a lot of stigma attached to psychological issues, and some employers aren't comfortable talking to employees about what they perceive to be a personal problem. So how can employers get the information they need to properly assess a psychological disability claim?
We have specifically designed forms to solicit capability information on psychological claims. And it is something that's still fairly new, even though psychological claims have been increasing in number over the last 5 to 10 years. It takes a while for strategies to develop, of course, on how to deal with those. So some of what we do is we actually have specific capability forms when it comes to psychological illness. And that really helps, because if you can quantify or assist the employer in quantifying the actual capabilities of the individual and compare that to the demands of the job, that makes that part of the transition so much easier.
What proportion of disability claims are psychological?
The long-term disability insurers, the data that they've published indicates that about 40% of all claims are now psychologically related, which is significant when you think about it. The next following, so it's the highest right now, and then the next following would be musculoskeletal.
If a claim is found not to be legitimate, what is the next step for an employer?
So after we determine that it's not got a psychological diagnosis as the basis for the reason why the person is off, it's very important that issues are dealt with right away. So if it's a workplace issue, or maybe it's a disagreement with the supervisor, or bad performance appraisal, or the person just feels there's too much work to be able to cope with. So it's very important that those issues are dealt with, and in person, because somewhere along the line we've lost that art of communication. And if you sit down with someone and talk to them about it, so many issues can be resolved. Forget the email, forget the BlackBerry, just sit down and have a conversation.